As a supermodel, actress, and health expert, I've traveled the world, and I have learned that no two people share the same story. My name's Carol Alt, and in my living room, you'll hear the stories that have shaped some of the most successful people in their industries. Welcome to Carol Alt's Living Room. You may know her from the covers of countless magazines and runway shows, but her story is much more complicated than that. From the Ural Mountains to New York City, please join me in welcoming Irina Pantaeva to Carol Alt's Living Room. Hi, I'm Carol Alt, and welcome to Carol Alt's Living Room. Today, I am interviewing a very good friend of mine, Irina Pantaeva. What an interesting life she's had. Irina, I can't wait to get into this with you, but I know you're really nervous. How many times have you been in my living room?
I even had a sleepover in your guest
Yes,
bedroom.
You did for 3 days. You had a spa
weekend. When I was going
weekend.
through my transitional time. Yes, thank you.
Which we will talk about. We will talk about everything. This is your life, Irina, okay?
Okay.
So we're going to start with, where were you born?
I was born and raised in former Soviet Union, now presently Russia, in Siberia, in a small town called Ulan-Ude, near the deepest lake in the world, Lake Baikal, in a tribe called Buryat.
So what is your ethnicity?
It's called Buryat people.
But you're an Inuit? Is that an Inuit?
Actually, interesting. It used to be Buryat Mongolian Empire. Genghis Khan was born in the region where I come from as well, so he's my ancestor. And I pay a respect to my ancestral, because they're the ones who really assisted me and guided me to come across the world, and I ended up in New York City in '94, and that's how I met you.
Yeah, all right, well, we'll get there, girl. We're gonna dish on everything.
Yeah.
You have an extremely interesting family. I wanna start with your grandfather.
Oh, what?
Yes, he was a Lama. Yes.
He was both sides in my family.
He was a shaman.
On both sides in my family, we preserved the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism that arrived in 18th century, and shamanism that goes millennia back.
Yet, it didn't prevent him from kidnapping your grandmother.
No. When it comes to a beautiful girl, a guy on a horse,
they are irresistible. She said,
there's no social media that you just jump on the back of your horse and go and pick up the most beautiful girl.
Yeah, but I noticed when he took off the hood, she didn't go like, yo, I'm leaving.
Oh, no, they got both lucky.
Yes.
They were 16 years old, and they fell in love immediately. They gave birth to more than 12 kids, as far as I know. They lost a lot of them.
Lucky little matchmaking thing.
Yeah, I'm just one of the seeds from that family tree branch.
So, as I said, your grandfather was a shaman, and from your village, your town, the reindeer is the village spirit. And what does your name mean?
Pantaeva means horns of a reindeer. It's my family
which embodies
symbol.
The spirit of reindeer.
Yes, and which connects to the First Nations of American Indians, and all Indians, in fact, from my work with all indigenous people around the world, besides fashion and other careers that I've been doing. But really, my true mission of my soul is to reconnect our lost family on this planet Earth. We all kind of went, and claiming that we started a new world, new country, new family, but we seem to forget our roots.
Came from.
And it's extremely important to remember.
I know it's very important to you about roots, because I get a lot of emails from you about the roots and spirituality. I know how spiritual you are, but I still want to get back to your family. So tell me about your parents.
Oh my God, my parents are my best friends.
Yes, you
They
love
met
your parents.
in, yes, you know.
I
Yes,
know.
you do. They love your cats too.
Yes, your father came
my
and
dad
babysat my
always
cats.
asks, you know, he has a cat as well.
Oh, Sammy.
Yes.
Well, your parents were in theater. They owned a theater.
They met in a theater. It was a government theater. It was a Drama National Buryat Theater. My mom was a costume maker. This is where I get my roots of dressing myself up, making an outfit out
Well,
of.
in fact, she gave you the best advice ever. What did she give you? What advice did she give you?
Ah, you know, you
Of course I
cheeky
know.
you.
I'm a
I
cheeky
thought I
little thing.
know you for 25 years and you still surprise me. So she told me at very early age, she said that, Irina, I will teach you the stitches of how to put a piece of clothing together, which will protect you and will keep you warm and safe and beautiful. And if you learn to do this craft of making clothes,
sewing,
yes, you will always have a piece of bread on your table.
You will never go hungry.
Yeah, I'll never be hungry.
If you know how to sew,
and I'm not on a
you'll
diet. I can eat. You know, because you always took me out and you fed
I know,
me.
I fed you a lot.
Yes, you did.
So you were born during Perestroika. Can you explain to us what Perestroika was, what it meant to you?
Well, I was born and raised during like pure communist time, where we had to pledge allegiance to the Communist Party every single morning in school. We had to line toe to toe all 30-something kids in each classroom, wearing uniform, and the young members of Communist Party,
A whole nother life, right?
yeah, it's like a whole other life. But you know, it's like in everything else, in any political system, there's a good side and not so good side. And I think I've picked really the most valuable qualities from growing up in that was my home, it was my life, my culture, my tradition, my family. It was in my blood. So it was about community and
Discipline?
Discipline for sure. You know,
Loyalty?
Loyalty, absolutely, and thriving against all odds to your ultimate goal in life. No matter what, you do not give up. And I think it's great. Hey, is that Sammy?
That's Joey.
Hey, Joey.
You're in my living room.
And then Perestroika, to go back.
Yes.
So then, sure enough, when I was 19, and this whole regime collapsed, thanks to Mikhail Gorbachev. I actually had
and
a
his
chance.
relationship with Reagan, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was such an amazing, not only historic, but just on a human level. You know, for both countries and the rest of the world, just to open up the walls and just get to know each other and say hi, you know, nice to meet you, nice to meet you, nice to meet you, nice to meet you, you know, and asking questions like you do.
Right,
know,
and getting honest answers and not propaganda.
And then at the end of the conversation, as you know, you've been to Russia many times, we are all family.
We're all the same.
We're all the same.
Right. Yeah. So you lived in the basement, actually. You were born and raised in the basement of this theater.
That's one thing my mom always told me, you know, you are determined, you are disciplined, you are self-sufficient, completely independent since I was born. But one thing, very impatient.
Uh-oh.
So sure enough, I gave her a sign to be born like right now, a month before due date.
So you were
and
early.
So I was born in the basement, amongst the musical instruments of my dad, in the basement of the orchestra.
So drama is in your blood.
My dad is a musical director. He's a composer writing traditional music.
Which actually goes down the family line further than you. So, but we'll get to that because in actuality, you had what was at the time you felt like a mistake, but ultimately was the best gift of your life. But I want to talk about in that moment when you got pregnant. Like, how did you first of all get away from your family? Because you're very tight with your family. So how did you get out of Siberia?
Well, thank God there were planes already existed.
Well, I hope so.
I flew to
You're not like
Moscow, but I was very determined to. I started questioning about the way and the country and the place
And the life.
and allegiance that I was born and raised and grew up basically. But I started questioning. There must be something else. You know, I was just curious. I guess my curiosity. Made me go to Moscow,
How old were you?
I was.
Because there's different accounts. I have to
no,
tell you, there's different accounts of how old you were.
Yeah, the first time I went, I was casted and offered. Oh my God, I totally forgot. A first part in the movie.
Right, you were 16,
in Gorky's
right?
studio. Yeah, right after I finished school, I was casted to play a princess. Actually,
But how'd they
an
find you?
epic
How'd they
film.
see you?
In the first ever beauty contest. It's called Miss Ulan-Ude.
So it was in your, it was kind
We
of in
had
your
to
neighborhood.
cook. It's not like only
Right.
wearing a beautiful
A gown, right.
clothes and swimsuit and high heels. No, we had to cook. We had to show all the talent, sing, dance, and be well aware of what's happening in the entire world. One thing I gave a huge credit during and my education. During Soviet time, we got very good
Education.
and
Yeah.
highly educated system. So I appreciate that. There are many things that I appreciated.
So you got out of Siberia. You went down to Moscow because you were seen in this beauty contest, and you were hired to do this movie. How was that?
I ended up actually co-producing it too.
You just know how to work it,
once
girl.
I thought this is great, to learn, for me personal, to learn the history of my people and how far they went, all the way through Middle East and Russia and to all the way to Hungary. And the fact that I was born and raised in the theater, being an actress,
It's in your blood.
I was born with that gene. And so I guess I'm avoiding the question.
Yeah, I know you are.
Yeah, one day.
And by the way, you shouldn't avoid the question because it's a really beautiful part of your life.
Yeah, no,
really
it is.
And you are
It is.
the most amazing mother and I've ever seen, and we'll get into that, but I want to take the timeline, so just go for it.
Okay. Well, I guess my labor pain, being pregnant with my entire life story, is almost over. So are you ready to deliver?
I'm ready to
The
deliver.
baby?
Let's go.
Okay, all right. Oh, that's so painful. Okay.
Because I know the truth, so I'll get it out of you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, without anesthesia. That's how I give birth to.
Anesthesia. No, I gave you 2 glasses of rosé. You're already anesthetized.
That's how I gave birth to my precious oldest son. I was almost 20,
Okay.
basically 19. I fell in love with a man that I just trusted, But now that I'm more mature, and
Do you mind telling the story? You don't have to if you don't want to.
I didn't realize this man was already married and had children. He was a little bit older, not much older.
Right, but you fell in love.
I
This
did
was
fall
not
in love
like any
because
fling for you.
all my life, and I still am, longing for love. Like
Right.
I think
You're a romantic.
every soul is seeking for another soul, And I had no experience, All I did
you were
was,
young.
finishing school, helping, doing work in the theater, everything my mother taught me between making costumes, sewing, coat check, cleaning the floors in the bathroom, and helping my dad, tune his instruments. I mean, this was my home. We didn't really have home, and so.
How did you meet this guy?
He came. He was a producer from Moscow.
Okay, so I
that
understand
brought
now.
that brought a large group of singers and dancers from India, because during Soviet time, Russia and India were great allies.
Great friends. Yeah.
Yes, and I grew up watching. The only foreign movies I grew up watching is Indian movies.
Indian movies, Bollywood.
Yes, Bollywood. Zita and Gita, I remember that was the name. But man, in those movies, all love stories, it was just like
Right, so you
much
grew up on that.
drama. So I thought this is how it's supposed to be.
So you told me the story once where you knocked on his door,
Well,
pregnant.
God, yes. Then I went to Moscow. I didn't really know that I was pregnant, but I always trusted my instincts. That
Right.
one thing I always trusted my own instincts. I had to go, and at that time there were no phones, and I only had the address. Oh my God, this person is gonna see this.
He should see
This man does not know what had happened.
It doesn't matter.
And I don't, I'm not angry or anything. I'm only
no, you're
grateful.
not. Actually, you are grateful.
I'm grateful
right.
for
Ruslan
for this whole experience. Right. And
so you knocked on his door and his wife answered.
No, his mother opened the door and said, I asked,
in. We're having a birthday party for
yeah,
us.
come in. We are celebrating a newborn of my son. And my heart just dropped. And but I didn't just crash. I mean, he told me, whenever you're going to be in Moscow, just, come and say hello. I would love to see you. And so I knew something was not completely, I wasn't feeling the same way, I was very nauseous. I was throwing up every morning. I got extremely skinny.
Right, and you're so young, you had no clue.
I had no clue, but at the same time, I knew there's no way I'm going back to the small town in Ulan-Ude, because my dreams were way too
big.
Too
big for a small town. So you went, but you have your child, and I think one of the biggest, most painful things that we had talked about was you left your child with your parents.
Yeah, that was another. Ever since then, it became a chain of events that.
Well, let's go through
became
them.
my life story.
Yeah, because this is the crux of your life story.
So basically, just to finish, while I remember this, because I kind of erased it, that
moment.
That moment in my life. But I think I owe to tell the truth to my son, and I have nothing to hide anymore, really.
Why? You've got.
And I'm sure my story is universal, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, and that's what led me to sit here with all of you guys, and thank you.
Well, you have the most amazing story, like how
so
you
basically,
got through,
I told the mother of this man. She said, "Would you like to leave, to leave a message?" And I said, "Yeah, I will be that day and that time next to the metro station. There is a fountain." Sounds still romantic, right?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, I love romance. Anyway, so I went, and I saw him coming, and my whole entire being went completely frozen and cold. My spirit did not recognize this person that I fell in love with. Totally naive, totally, not experienced, and just trusted at that moment. And I really didn't know.
Well, you knew
what
now.
was happening.
Yeah.
So basically, I saw this man coming. He did show up, but I decided to turn around and walk away. And I promised that moment that I will do everything in my power to to give a life to my child.
Well, I got to tell you something. I'm sure he saw your photos and said, "What a mistake I made letting that one go."
The thing is, he doesn't know. He never knew.
Well, he knew who you were.
Unless
he had a relationship with you.
Unless he's good at math.
But he had a relationship with you anyway. You're an amazing woman, and he let that go. All right, so you have your child, and you leave him with the parents, and you embark on this amazing career.
What had happened historically in former Soviet Union, now Russia, which was complete chaos. There was no more communism. It was not socialism. It was not capitalism. It was not democracy. It was like an anarchy.
Yeah.
It was an anarchy. You know, no one knew what was happening, and yet people were starving. I was not legal resident in Moscow. At the time, you had to be like a green card, but you had to be a resident in Moscow, and I wasn't. So therefore, I didn't get my benefits to get there were coupons to get a certain amount of bread, basically like after the war.
Right.
Maybe people in the West
Rations.
don't really know about it. So I was buying just this instant noodles on the black market.
Right. Oh.
So anyways, kind of by fixing clothes for people. It was like pure
So your mother
barter.
was right.
I don't know if it's in English
Tailoring.
barter. Yeah.
Yeah.
You exchange not for money but for things.
Right.
So yeah, and it was just a survival, a pure survival.
How did you end up going into a beauty? You went into a beauty pageant in Moscow.
I was there was Pierre Cardin. Pierre Cardin, he was I think he's one of the first foreign fashion legendary designers who broke through the wall and came to present his entire retrospective of his work on the Red Square in Moscow. You've been there many times. It's extraordinary.
So
and
you were
I
picked.
was picked by hand after being abused and bitten by other white Russian girls.
Oh my God, bitten.
Well, yes. And I said, okay, you want to deal with
Bring
me?
it on.
I got a whole army of Genghis Khan behind me.
So you were chosen to do this, and then where did that take you?
On stage, wearing a wedding gown, and apparently after
that was
it was like So, anyways, he picked me to do that. But even at that time, the walls was still down. I wasn't even dreaming that I will get. That was like amazing,
So you wear the wedding gown. What happens next?
To my blessing and rescue, was a doctor who delivered the baby, happened to be from my hometown. He recognized my last name. He said, "Is your father a legendary Buryat composer?" And I said, "Yes." He said, and he asked me straightforward, "Do they know you here?" I said, "No one knows, and please don't tell to anybody because I am doing it and I'm raising him." And after I was already given a set of documents for adoption, automatically, without even asking.
Because of your age.
Because I was also not a resident in Moscow.
Oh, and not a resident. So they automatically assume that.
Yeah. My mom flew in.
She'd heard.
I gave permission to the doctor to give a call to my parents. I didn't speak with them, and in the next couple of days, I saw my mom outside of the window, which was in March, freezing cold. I don't know still to this day how she managed to climb to the second floor. I guess she put some
snow,
structure.
just piled the snow up.
Yeah, I know.
March in Russia.
And then she waited for another 10 days while we were recovering, and then she took us home on a plane.
All right, now you're back in Siberia where you totally did not want to be.
But it was the best year, first year, all of us together. My father, Vladlen, my mom, Tatiana.
So how did you decide to leave them?
And again, it was a survival because things got really bad in Russia. Perestroika, going back to your first question. And then like we were completely cut off the source of food at
Right.
that point. In Moscow and St. Petersburg, because there were big cities, capitals of Russia,
There was more opportunity.
they had more opportunities. We had nothing.
So you leave the baby and you go down to Moscow.
I go to Moscow, and then I'm sitting on the bench in Gorky Park, which is like Central Park
Central Park,
here, and then there's beautiful blonde girl, tall, sits on the other edge of the bench. And then we start talking, and then I had no place to go, like nothing. I was basically homeless. And then
winter
and then
in
she said,
Moscow.
"Stand up." And I did. And then she said, "Turn around." So I did. And then she said, "Well, might be. You might go through the casting of my, there's this avant-garde fashion theater, and I'm actually here for the rehearsal.
Okay.
But the big minus, you completely flat, you have
Chested.
no breasts,
Oh my
but
God.
you have long legs. So you want to come with
You
me?
got a chance.
And I said, sure. And so that's how I became part of the Irina Pantaeva first avant-garde fashion theater, she called it. And we joined with Stas Namin, who is the first rock star still during Soviet time.
Yes.
And he might be even in America, because he's the first one who ever got from Russia and came to United States. So he gave a platform to the fashion theater. And thank God I had a background in sports and modern dance.
And in drama.
And theater, and so we were rehearsing like ballet classes for real, and we were performing in major concert stages in Moscow and nearby cities.
Okay, so how did you
with
get...
the musicians, Russian rock stars, and Russian models.
But how did you get then? How did you make...
I was pregnant with Ruslan, actually, at that time.
When you were doing it?
Yeah.
So then you gave birth. Then you went back.
Then I went back. Now I came back. I came back to Moscow.
I know this is a long time ago,
Yeah,
Irina, but it's not 100 years ago.
No, I know. It was last century, right? Anyway, so I met this girl who was in that avant-garde theater, and she said that I know people who can get us an exit visa from Russia,
Okay.
and get an entry visa to go to France.
And so that's what you did.
And that's what I did.
So
and taking a risk.
Right, because you didn't even speak French, you didn't speak English.
But taking a risk, if I we had to sign papers that once we exit Russia,
You won't be able to get back
we
in.
will not be able to get out.
And you
that's
have
how
your family there.
that was the huge risk that I took to leave my, my son.
Oh,
with my
honey,
parents.
there were a lot more risks than that.
I know, it was survival.
I know.
But there was also no time
you
to
were young.
really think. But it
Right,
was
you just
like,
had to take the opportunities as they came. So you land in Paris, no English.
no, nothing, just
How did your agent take you? Like, how did you find an agent?
there were no agents because they all refused me because
Okay.
of my
Ethnicity.
ethnicity,
Yes.
and no one had a clue,
What
it's
to
like
do with you.
this alien-looking, tall young girl with a thick Russian accent. They were all confused.
Yet you end up at Chanel. Tell me
Because
how
I
that
wanted to
happened.
meet Karl Lagerfeld. He was my idol.
How did you even know about Karl Lagerfeld?
Because I studied and I finished an advanced course at FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology in Vladivostok at 18. So I became a fashion designer, and I worked for 1 year in a small atelier as a designer. So that was my experience, and I've studied. I just didn't.
So how did you get in front of him?
It's funny. I was walking on Champs-Élysées, no agency, nothing, and my visa is about to expire in a little bit more than 1 week, and I see there's this long line of girls, and I go and I ask, what is it for? You know, what do they give? Because
Yeah,
I'm used
of course.
to
In Russia,
there's always, you know, and they said, oh, this is casting for Givenchy. And the girl behind me, she's like, this is gonna be at least 3 hours, and I have an appointment. I have a casting for Chanel with Karl Lagerfeld, and I had.
You heard Chanel?
I just had such a reaction when she said Karl Lagerfeld. I didn't even say anything because I didn't really have much vocabulary
right.
in English. But she responded to my my reaction.
She's like,
said,
oh, you have to go
why
too?
you have to go too? I said,
Yeah, da.
She said, well, you know, make up your mind because I have a car. I can take you with me. I said,
Let's
So next thing, I'm standing at the reception. She goes in, and the receptionist is looking for my name, agency, nothing. And then I only say, my name is Irina. I come from Siberia, Russia. I'm here to meet Karl Lagerfeld. That's all I could say. Somehow, the door opened. I went in. Then I met people on each floor until I met Gilles, his name. He was assistant at that time for Karl. He was so kind, and he just welcomed me with so warm.
Well, the funny thing is that you get the job, and the girl who took you does not.
Oops, I didn't know if she. I don't know if she did.
Ah, you got the
But
job.
I think if she ever sees it, I don't think I even know her name. But I thank you. So
you became Karl Lagerfeld's actual. You
So
became his muse.
next thing you know, he looks at me. He says, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Irina Pantaeva from Siberia.
I'm here to meet Karl Lagerfeld."
Yes, I'm here to meet Karl Lagerfeld. I all remember we had we laughed so
connection.
hard, and then we had an instant connection. And then he said, "Try put some outfits on," and I was like, "This is like back in the theater."
Yeah, so this
you
was
know?
easy.
And so I put, and then she asked, "Can you walk?" I said, "No." I said, "I need music." Because that's what I'm used
of course.
to for the
yes,
fool.
you're a dancer.
Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. That's what I did.
Did he put music on?
Yes, they did.
And you sashayed down the runway.
Yes, and next day I was in backstage of Chanel.
Now you're backstage at Chanel, and ultimately you become his muse because you become the face of Chanel for a while. So you're standing with Carla Bruni, and what do you hear from Carla Bruni?
Carla Bruni, she comes to me. She says, "Who are you?" It's like you appeared out of nowhere, and then she said,
"Are you going to New York?"
You realize that you can make a career out of this. Come with us to New York for Fashion Week. It was March '94.
So you take Carla's advice, not with a word of English in your vocabulary.
But also my card de séjour in a French visa was expiring in 1 week.
you
That
had
meant
no
I had
choice,
to go
really.
back.
Right.
And the situation in Russia at that time, for sure, no one was ever gonna be allowed to exit Russia. So it was like I would go back, and that
or
was
get
it.
kicked out of France, or go to
that
New
was
York.
it. Or so next morning I went to American Embassy in.
I heard somebody was very stubborn there who said, "I'm not leaving till I get a visa,"
Yeah.
and you got one.
Oh my God! I had my red Russian passport with stamped, stickered visa, French visa, and then I was determined.
Yeah,
my
I know you wouldn't
baby
leave.
back, my family. Like
So you
I
land in
didn't
New
have
York
family.
Without
Then I landed in New York,
right,
and 1 week later,
no English,
no,
no agent,
no,
no apartment,
no,
no friends,
just my backpack.
and where did you go? You didn't tell me you sat on a bench in Central Park.
No, I wish I
American
knew.
Gorky.
I love Central Park. No. I got a list of places to go, and I went to a modeling agency called Woman.
Okay, yes.
Woman or Women?
Woman.
Woman. and
Women with an E, women.
women, and because I'm already experienced in being rejected because the way I look, so I said, listen, don't take me, just give me a list of clients, I do it. And I did.
You had enough English to put those
Paul
in.
and John, but I had enough time on the plane, you know,
to learn some English.
some
Yeah,
few
but
words.
listen,
So that's what I did.
I've lived with a Russian for 17 years and can't speak a word. I can understand chut-chut, but I can't speak it. It's a very difficult jump from
Yeah.
Cyrillic to Latin,
Yeah,
basic
it's
languages.
completely like, you know.
Completely change of the computer in the brain. The most amazing thing is you land in New York with all these strikes against you, and you end up walking in 22 shows.
Was that much?
Yes.
How many days was that?
That was the 2.5 weeks of Fashion Week.
Well, all I remember, I was like back home on stage on a runway,
where you're comfortable.
wearing costumes and dresses, and one of the first designers was Marc Jacobs, and when I walked in, he already knew, hi, Irina. Apparently, they already knew the rumors from Paris that the strange-looking, alien-looking girl walked like no one knows who she is still.
Yeah, the modern day Pat
For
Cleveland.
Chanel. So yeah, that's how.
Yeah,
it
because
started.
Pat used dance moves as well. She was your predecessor on the runway.
Yeah.
Graceful, gorgeous movement and freedom, which was always your calling card as well.
Yeah.
You were at this point almost 24 years old.
Yeah, that wasn't. Yes.
I got news for you, honey. That's really old in modeling years. Most girls, if they're not in it by 16 or 17, they don't have a chance. And you, against all odds,
At that
even
time,
at an older
I mean,
age,
even now.
yeah,
Right. And
you
and having a child.
and having, well, if nobody knew that, nobody really cared, except you, of course, because
Yeah,
I'm
that was
sure
my
your
true
heartstrings,
motivation.
Yeah, but that was absolutely your true motivation. But here you are, 24 years old, and you are going gangbusters. You also got married around this time.
Yes, I did.
Tell us about Roland.
I had met Roland, and
Why did you get married?
I again once more
You
I
felt
trusted.
lonely. Yeah, but
No,
you felt
I
lonely too. I mean,
trusted.
you're like you're in all these strange
I
lands.
totally. I said to myself, who can I trust more than a man from my own country? He is an immigrant from Soviet Union. He came here.
Isn't he Latvian?
He's from Latvia, but
Yeah.
at that time, all Latvian, all
Yes, so
Baltic
they were
countries,
satellites, yes.
Yeah, they were part of Soviet Union. And he came here in '74, and I trusted. He said, marry me. Your son will be like my son. That was it for me.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought this is, I'm in this new and the land of opportunities and manifestation of all of one's dreams that, I thought this was like an American Got Talent, how they press the button. I love that.
Yeah, and so here you were, married with a guy who wanted your child. Did you bring Ruslan to New York?
Then, yes, 2 months later, we went to City Hall and...
You got married in a Zang toy.
In Zang Toy, thank you, Zang. Yes, in Zang Toy, because he was one of the designers.
Yeah, white miniskirt.
That I went, the miniskirt and the white T-shirt and Manolo's red shoes, and it was the happiest day of my life at that time, and I soon became legal and got my documents and immediately
and worked like crazy.
Oh,
Girlfriend, you were
worked.
working all the time.
Yeah.
$10,000 a day.
Yes, that was.
You were the face of Chanel. I mean, Lagerfeld's muse. You were doing all the shows. You were in all the magazines. You had covered Elle and Vogue, and you even actually worked for Sports Illustrated.
Yes, I know, and that was my kind of.
Well, I have to tell you how unusual that is, because it was always at that point like the girl next door, which
But also,
you were not. And flat
like
chested,
below
okay.
zero size.
I wasn't
and
going
bra.
there.
I was shocked, but it was part of kind of a new, new trend.
So, how did it feel? Because here you are working in America. They're all looking at you as an Asian model. You were the first Asian supermodel, but yet you're Russian. You're not even really Asian.
No, I'm not.
So how did that feel? Was this like a disconnect for you?
I do look Asian, but we're native people, and we're all native people, indigenous people.
Right.
Actually, do believe that came from the East, and I do know from the first sources of the elders from different tribes, from Colombia, from Peru, from Mexico, from
Because I have to tell you, the last thing you look to me is Asian. Really, the last thing to me you look is Asian, but I know you so well. I could see where they would think you're Asian, but to me, you look your ethnicity to me. So I'm not, you know, it's hard for me to fathom that people look at you as Asian. I would think, I'd be like, what do you mean Asian? I'm a Russian. But, you know, hey, I'm going to go with the flow because it's getting me work.
In Japan, because, you know, they would, in the West, they would think, oh, you're Chinese or you're Japanese, you know, that's basically the category.
Yeah.
But when I was working in Japan, and with my Russian accent and not speaking Japanese, the taxi drivers would get so offended. You know how the doors,
yeah.
the doors were opening automatically. They wouldn't open the door for me. They wouldn't take me.
Because you wouldn't speak Japanese.
No.
So here you are at the top of everything, married, your baby's in New York, you have a new husband who's treating him like his own son, you're making $10,000 a day, you're traveling around the world, you're being photographed everywhere. And things come a little bit crashing down on you. What happens?
When it dawned to me one day when my oldest son finished school and was ready to go to college, it was just like a wake-up call, you know. I looked into my life and I thought, you know, I am not doing any more sacrifices. But I'm a mother.
By the way, now you're a mother to a
Of
second
two.
child at this point. You had a
Yes.
child with Roland.
Yes, we have.
Tell us
We have the most beautiful
Tell us.
boy, Solongo. He's 14 now, and I'm so proud of him. And he's my baby.
Yes,
You
he
know,
is.
He comes from my DNA, my ancestral lineage, and I'm sorry that he had to go through this.
Right, because you
and I
decided
have
to
taken,
divorce,
and as a
right?
mother, I am taking. I'm standing up. You know, it's like on airplane. Put a mask on yourself when the plane is crashing, and then your child.
Right.
And this is and here I am.
This has been a very hard lesson for you, though, to really stand up for yourself. Your divorce was very contentious for some odd reason, because you're not a contentious person at all.
It's been going on for 10 years.
It's amazing to me.
You know, but one thing, I'm very, very grateful the way my parents raised me, and my family, and thanks to my traditions in Buddhism and shamanism, the teachings of my elders had helped me tremendously to stay true to myself, but at the same time to not hold an anger.
Yes.
And first of all, forgive myself and others, accept it, let it go, take charge.
But this was not an easy lesson for you, because you went through a period of depression and anxiety. I know, because we sat hours talking.
Yeah, and you have been my everything, you know. You've been my rock, my pillow. You're still cushioning my my tushy with extra pillows, you know. And I got extremely depressed and developed an extreme social anxiety, and I didn't know what was going on with me, because growing up, I mean, we didn't
nobody talked about this stuff.
Nobody talked. Simply mental disorder does not exist in my country, and even in Europe, you know.
And I would think people looking at you saying, there's this gorgeous woman who made tons of money, who has an apartment worth tons of money, who has 2 gorgeous sons. What does she have to be depressed about? But I could see where, you know, when all of a sudden things change and life changes and you have to go through tough times, and all of a sudden everything you leaned on, your husband, your career, everything, by this point you're getting a little older, and like with all of us, work falls away, and that can bring a lot of anxiety. And
I was all by myself, you
Yeah.
know, besides you guys, my friends, you know. My friends are my family, really. And, but I couldn't really.
and we
you know,
fight like that.
Yeah, we're warriors, not warriors, but we're warriors. Peaceful. And so, yeah, I couldn't really, you know, I didn't want to worry my parents, you know.
Well, and for sure, during all of this, your mom got ill, and
She got
passed
ill
on.
and she passed on.
and your father
that
is-
took a huge,
Yeah.
it was just completely, took a whole ground under my feet.
Yeah, it was
you know.
earth-shaking
Plus,
for you.
my ex was keep dragging, you know, to a new court.
I have to tell you
one
something.
after another, and to a point where, you know, our son and I, we end up on welfare for a couple of years. You know, thank God to this country that gave this.
Well, you know,
so-
though, I always have a back room for you. So
Yes, you
know,
know
we can-
that. Yeah.
But I have to tell you something. For a girl who landed here with not a word of English, you speak English just flawlessly. But I watched you do your divorce by yourself.
Thank God for
Right, you couldn't
you
afford a
know
lawyer,
how
right?
I
Yeah.
got you know how I got through this. I just remembered one of my first drama teacher, Stanislavski method, Irene Moore, that I have studied with her master class at NYU.
Right.
Same time I came, you know, in
Right.
in '95, and yeah, basically, I applied this teaching that every character is based on true life experience. Apply to it, use it.
So you were using all this.
So
life
I said,
experience.
okay. So my new role is to be my own matrimonial attorney.
Advocate, yes.
So I literally dressed myself. I've been doing tons of research.
And the worst
you know,
part
legal,
of all of this,
learning new words, this legal words.
And the worst
you
part of this
know.
is you had a female judge who are always tougher on females. I went through the same
You
thing.
told me about
Yes,
your experience.
I told you.
I didn't
yeah.
believe until
I know
I
you didn't
got
believe
one.
me. Right.
Yeah, for
But
some reason.
you know, you were just my hero because I was watching you go through this. I was watching the grace and style which you went through this all with, and how you handled it. I watched the whole thing. I was there for support with you, along with your
Yeah.
other friends. It was just absolutely amazing to me how you went through this. And now you're on the other side of this, kind of. We'll get into that. But I also have to point out, in the midst of all this, you got a degree in drama here in the States. You studied.
Yes, I did.
Tell me about that degree.
Well, it was.
I was looking for it in my cards. I can't find it. I know it's in there, but we're not going in any order.
It was
Yes.
at NYU masterclass, and with legendary Irene Moore. She's a daughter of Sonia Moore, who directly
Studied with
studied
Stanislavski, right.
with Stanislavski back at that time in Russia.
So
It was like
you're-
direct
I
source.
know, it's amazing. You can't speak a word of English. You're working every single day, and you get this degree. Of course, I know it's drama, so it's like all in your blood, and you were compelled to do it. But it's just amazing. And then you are moving along in the midst of this divorce and this chaos and this fighting, and you're doing your own advocacy, and you are still battling this depression and anxiety which you had.
Yeah, I
But you
have
did-
had, but I didn't know what was happening.
Right,
with
but
me.
you did fall back on your Buddhist roots, because every
it-
time I called you, you were out in the Buddhist temple.
Yeah, I
and
was
they
in the
were-
temple, yes,
Ooh.
doing the practicing.
Right,
yes,
right.
it
I think it
really-
got you through the toughest
Because
of
Buddhism,
times.
yes, absolutely. I'm so ever grateful for that teaching, and I'm not a religious person. In fact, Buddhism is really not considered a religion. It's philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a practical tools to apply in your daily life. Period. And that's it.
Well, it certainly has done amazing
you don't
things
have to
for
be
you.
you don't have to be religious. You can be any other,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Christian or Muslim or any other beliefs, you know, and these tools just apply to it. And plus, this January I was diagnosed with Lyme disease,
Yes.
And now that I go back a couple of years, you know, and kind of tracing, one thing that I did, because I started losing my memory, I was writing everything down.
You did a journal. I know you were studying. I was like, I'm asking you about your life. I said, I'm studying up on my life. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, okay.
because at that
Have another glass of rosé.
yeah, Lyme disease it's epidemic apparently.
It's epidemic.
It's on the news, the New York Times.
Right, I've hooked you up with a couple people,
You
so
did,
I hope
and
that's
thank
helped.
you. Yeah, and actually, Ali Hilfiger, the daughter of Tommy, is basically a survivor and a spokesperson now about Lyme.
So you get hit not with just a 1-2 punch.
Which I'm trying to link to depression and anxiety. Lyme apparently affects not only your whole nerve system but goes to your brain.
Oh, it goes to your brain. Absolutely.
And I had no idea, and that's probably was on top of all other things that was happening.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like on a chemical level, on my cellular and level, it was affecting. And there were days that I couldn't even remember your name when I wanted to dial a phone number. So that's where I have been in the last 3 years.
So you had this, not just a 1-2 punch, you had a 3-4 punch as well. And it's taken a toll on you. And I know this because we're good friends, so I know this. But you've come out the other side of this, a stronger, more beautiful, more spiritual person. And we have your book here. And you know what freaked me out is I called you and I said, can we borrow your book? And you said, it's on Amazon. I'm like, I've got like copies of every one of my books, you know? And I was like so shocked that you didn't have a book that we could put up here. So I'm glad you got one.
I borrowed from my other girlfriend.
That is hysterical that you didn't even have your own book.
And I didn't know it was still going around the world.
Yes, well, your story is really incredible. I mean, the odds that you fought against.
And people write about it, and guess what? You all witnessing, I am ready to share my story.
It took a little prodding to get you here.
The next book.
I think that you are ready to move forward. Tell me about your line of clothing.
Okay, so the last, and you know
suddenly she comes alive.
So see the last page in the book, it says determined, comma, I take the step forward, dot. So here I am in the first dot.
You are challenging the future.
And then I remembered, you know, I was grieving also about my mom's passing.
You had so much happening at once.
And then, but then I clearly heard her voice saying, honey, remember what I taught you when you were 8 years old, how to sew clothes?
You know how to sew, you can always
eat. You will always make, you will always have a piece of bread. And I went back to that, and that was, it never went away. It inspired me again, you know, and it was my creative outlet. And
let me tell you something. It was always your creative outlet, because I used to give you clothes, and you would take them apart, and you would rearrange them and make completely different lines out of them, which is why I loved giving you, you know, clothes, because to watch what you did with them. You were always creative in this. This was always in your blood. And now you're moving forward. And didn't you also, you did the clothing for Maxwell while he was on his tour?
Well, what had happened is November 16 or 15, this horrible mass terrorist attack in Paris.
Right.
And that really, you know, just kind of
at the restaurant
stabbed me, you know, and I said, this world must change right now. And then, and it was so personal to me because the Second World War between Germany and Russia, 41 to basically 1939 through 1945, and every single family, including both of my grandparents, being at war. And so it was too close. And one of the parts in the movies that I finally accepted and I did it it was a German production called As Far as My Feet Will Carry Me. It's based on true story about German soldier, how he survived the Second World War, and his life was it was in labor camp in Siberia, but he was able to escape, and his life was saved by the native people, and that's where my character comes in. But I kept saying no to this few times because it was just too painful. So anyways, I have found this authentic 1970s German military uniform that belonged to a soldier.
And I see you've put
And
your thoughts into it.
And then it became.
You want to show the back? Is that what?
Well,
yeah.
maybe later, but yeah. So it's Peaceful Warriors United.
You have all these
Sounds
words
like
on
Marvin
it.
Gaye, right?
Right. Yeah.
Toot, 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 toot.
You have
Okay.
united. You have all the things that were important throughout your life: praying, singing, being united.
Do you want to
dance.
read? Can
Yes,
you read?
I can read.
Okay.
Maybe. Okay. This army uniform, I paint on this red thread. I weave this soul. I pray for this enemy. I forgive this seed of peace. I nurse this child. I raise this step. I dance. I sing. I send this note to the earth to love. I pray for that I may find love and kindness, so the world will know we are one from peace. Irina
Yes.
Pantaeva,
Yes.
my little reindeer.
And the way to come to peace is being united, because just
Right.
remembering where we come from, we all come from one family tree.
So this is where your new line, the seed of your new line, is springing from.
Well,
Peace
I
and
didn't
love.
even think, this became like my canvas, my platform to really express and really give an opportunity for people to remember who they are, that we're all brothers and sisters, therefore, why would we kill each other,
Yeah, but why do we hurt each other? I
And
mean,
ex-
even in
period.
divorce, why do we hurt
And
each
the
other? In
only way,
anything.
and the only way to achieve peace is through forgiveness and compassion.
So I love where you're going. I love where you've come from as well. I mean, your story is just incredible to me. How you've
Thank you.
come from Siberia to beat all odds and to come to New York and to be here. And I think that, I'm looking forward to chapter 3
Yes.
of the Irina Pantaeva
The third
story.
dot, and
The
to many
third
more
dot.
dots.
And to many more dots afterwards.
Yes, thank
And this
you.
is Carol Alt. Thank you for being in my living room this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you the next time.